Okay. Hi. Thanks for being here. I just wanted to preface a couple questions with a teeny tiny, wee little story. My friend Fred turned me on to Esther-Hicks, Abraham, probably about a year ago. And I thought, this is a bunch of hogwash. My body felt that it was right, but my mind said, I just can't believe this. This is just ridiculous. So I'm running around the house and I'm listening to your tape, and I'm on the couch and I'm sitting there and I'm like, vibration, what is this all about? And so then at 4 o'clock I said, oh my God, I gotta go. I gotta go to the post office. And I had been waiting all day to go, but I didn't know why. So I went to the post office and there you were. It was really, really neat. And I got to say hi to you, and I walked in and I heard your voice and I thought, no way. It was really cool. Anyway, I have a couple of that powerful attraction. Oh, it was huge. It was so huge. So huge. So thank you for that.
Well, we hang out in the low where we say, yes.
I know. Fud was so amazed. Anyway, the first question I have is, if I want to heal myself of bipolar disorder, no matter what, can I do it? Is it possible? Yes. All the doctors say I cannot. And years ago, when I got off my medicine, let's say 7 years ago, when I was experimenting and didn't want to accept that I had this label, I ended up in the hospital many times, and it was very painful. So I guess my first question is do you believe that I can heal my bipolar disorder?
Absolutely. Talk to us about how it manifests.
Well, I'm on medicine, so it doesn't get to come out very often.
Then is it an issue?
That's the second part of my question. I'm doing great on the medicine, so should I just keep taking my medicine and what the hell and live like that?
Of course, what we would do, we would continue the medicine feeling appreciation for the balance that it provides for you. And at the same time, we would identify what our strong desire is. In other words, your desire is to be what?
I'm a singer, and when I get up on a stage, it's to be just like my old self before I got manic.
What is that?
What is diet without getting anxietous, or without having to go in the bathroom and pray and calm down or put a pill under my tongue.
There is not anything inappropriate about continuing with the medicine. In other words, because it is giving you this stable footing for now. And so we would continue that. Do you get a sense of what we mean when we say that out of your life experience are born powerful desires? And so when you, through life experience, come to conscious awareness of things that you want, there's a vibration that activates within you that's very powerful, and that's what the vibration of desire is. So when, however it happens, you give birth to some powerful desires that you, for whatever reason, for whatever other influence in your life, aren't believing, then there's this really strong tug of war that's taking place within you. And we think that is the best description of this label that they have given you of anything else. Every time we have seen it, and we see it every time that it is labeled, in other words, it is not something that you are making up, every single time it is a person who has powerful, off-the-chart wanting that they haven't figured out how to receive. Your emotions tell you everything that you need to know about your relationship with your source energy. And by that we mean, how much source energy am I pulling through me right now? Or another way of saying that is, how great is my desire? And as my desire is very powerful in pouring through me, how much of that am I allowing to pour through me, or how much of that am I not allowing to pour through me? If I didn't want very much, my resistance would be a non-issue. In other words, if you're going 2 miles an hour, it doesn't matter how many trees are in the way, you can dart around them. But if you're going 200 miles an hour, the trees start to matter more. When you have a powerful desire, and so you're summoning lots of energy through you, and you have beliefs that contradict your own desire, now there's this clashing going on. And that's what the medicine helps you to soften. In other words, it softens your focus, it softens your angst. Of course, it changes the chemicals in your body, which is what is doing that, but the process through which it is happening is not as important as understanding what is happening. What is happening is there is a splitting of energy within you. And so even while you are taking the medicine, as you talk about your desire and why you want it, it's not possible for you to think about what you want and why you want it and be in as contradicted a vibration as when you are thinking about what you want and the fact that you don't have it. We would far rather see you with strong desire that you're not allowing than we would with no desire.
I see.
And you were born with this powerful inclination toward desire. You were a powerful focuser.
Yeah.
Which means it's not possible for you to rein in your desire. We don't encourage that ever anyway. And so what you're wanting to do is let your desire run as rampant as it wants to run, and it is pretty strong. And then you work to bring yourself into alignment with your desire as best you can. Soothe yourself into alignment. And you soothe yourself into alignment with words that feel soothing when you hear them from others or from yourself.
All right. My husband tapped into it. He said, Candace, just could you be quiet in your spirit? We were just at the bar before I was going on stage, and he's like, just be quiet in your spirit. And it was like somebody put a little pill under my tongue. I completely understood. And when I'm writing a song, I've learned how to be completely focused and very quiet in my spirit. And the composition just comes out. It's amazing, and it just writes itself. And so that's what I am learning how to do as far as, trying to heal myself is
focus on those times that happens. In other words, the more you remember, as you were speaking that to us right then, you were in perfect alignment with what you were speaking. In other words, as you remembered that time, you were there again. And also it is helpful for you to recall that you can be there and you cannot be there, that sometimes you're able to bring yourself back into alignment with thought. Sometimes you bring yourself back into alignment by putting the pill under your tongue. It doesn't really matter. You can bring yourself back into alignment. And when you remind yourself that you can come into alignment, then it makes you not so fearful that you will get out of alignment. And when you are not so fearful that you will get out of alignment, then you don't get out of alignment so much, and it just gets better and better and better and better. You were born with powerful desire. And when you go with the desire, you thrive. When you fight against it, you don't. So that desire was to stand out. That desire was to make a difference. That desire was to be heard. That desire was to get tuned in and be an example to others who can be tuned in. And so when you think thoughts like, I'm not good enough, or I'm not ready, or they won't accept me, or they don't understand me,
why don't I have a record deal yet?
those thoughts are so opposite of your desire that that's what sets you out of alignment. Where thoughts like, it's coming, all is well, everything in its perfect time. And if we were standing in your physical shoes, we would focus on the writing of the song, and we would let the universe take care of the aligning with the contracts. In other words, you get in that creative mode. It's always lovely to speak with someone who understands that creative mode, because you know when you're there and you know when you're not. And when you're there, you're in that place of allowing. So what we'd like to say to you is you want to get into that place of allowing relative to your record contracts too. Write a song about your record contract. In other words, get it.
I just finished it. It's called The Jet Plane Takes Off, and it's about what you teach. So
Perfect.
I got it. Okay. I think you say genius is focus. Does focus take practice, or is it just something you pull out of the sky when you're letting it in?
Focus does take practice. What focus is isolating a vibration from a maze of vibration and focusing upon it long enough that it becomes a dominant vibration. And so sometimes, because you are a very energetic person who's eager about a lot of different things, you have a lot of active vibrations in your experience. And it's possible for you to have many things that are moving forward all at the same time. But if there is something that is bothering you that is getting quite a bit of your attention, sometimes it causes the dominance of your vibration to be not in a place of letting in the other things that you are wanting.
Right.
You've been letting the universe know in lots of different ways what you want. And you do not need to sit down right now and say, I want this, and I want this, and I want this, and I want this, because you've done an excellent job through the contrast that you've been living of pointing all of that out. Now your work is to get into a place where you're a match to what you are wanting. You're a match when you're feeling good. You're not a match when you're not feeling good. And so that worries you, because you say, but when I don't feel good, I really don't feel good. And we say, but what that means is you really, really want it. In other words, that's good news, not bad news, you see.
Okay.
Just relax more. Be more playful about it. Continue to take your medicine at the same time that you continue to acknowledge that you don't need it. Let it be something that's like a friend that helps you along the way. Don't push against it. It is a friend, not an enemy. And give yourself as much time in the creative phase as you can, because when you're in that creative phase, that's when you are in your place of allowing. And so, do you find that you can achieve that almost any time you sit down to do it?
Oh, yes.
You know how to do it relative to the creative music. Now get into it relative to anything that you desire. You could pet your cat. You could never think another thought about any of this, and the universe will yield you a contract. And the time it takes between now and when the contract is yielded has to do with how many thoughts you have that are worrisome in nature that keep that from happening. The well-being is on its way to you unless you do that thing you do. And the good news is, every time you do that thing you do, you feel negative emotion. So negative emotion is not an enemy or not a bad thing. It's your friend. It's saying, hey, what you want is on its way to you, but you're slowing it down just a little bit by this train of thought. Would you like to choose some different train of thought or no train of thought?
So when somebody says to you, you're 33, you better hurry up, because if you don't, my mother says, well, that's just ridiculous. You need to think of maybe going back to college, or, hey, Dad just opened for Coolio at the Mint in LA. Oh, that's great, honey. Hey, la, 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 la. And she's talking about something else. So, and then, somebody from a record company says, well, you have talent. You're an amazing composer and you're this and that, but geez, you're really getting up there in age. Because I've listened to you and listened to your tapes and everything and read your book, and I don't necessarily get keyed into that so much, but still the little devil goes, huh.
You might say something to them like, are you saying that the entry point has to be a certain age? Because there are a lot of people a lot older than I am that are still at the top of their game. So is the age thing just about the entry point, or are there some other qualifications that I'm not aware of? Who gets to decide other than you? No one, you see. It's usually someone who feels defensive. In other words, if you're hiring somebody to represent you and they're not finding any inroads, then sometimes they feel like they need to justify why things aren't going better, so they're looking for excuses and trying to lay it back on you. And what you want to do is, if you are not putting them in the position where you are making them feel like you think that they are responsible for what's happening, they'll offer you less of that. As you begin to accept that you are the creator of your own experience, and so you're not laying it on your agent's table. In other words, you're in this together, but you're not making them feel defensive. They won't throw that stuff up at you. That's just their defense mechanism. Just laugh and say, oh, there's been a whole lot of a lot older buggers than me making great success. Now get off of that and let's move on. Be playful about it, because age has nothing to do with anything. Everything is about vibrational alignment. What we notice as we watch you, as you are moving through time, all of you as a mass consciousness, is that the majority of your desires are happening early on in your life. And if you are in a place where you can allow it, then much of your success comes very early in life. And there are people who will say, if your success does not come early, then it will not come. And the reason that they say that, from what they observe, is because mostly they're not really allowing themselves to want only when they are young. And usually by the time they are older, they've blocked off most of the allowing anyway. And so they're not wrong in their observation. In other words, that is the usual rule. But that is not who you are. In other words, you're going to keep wanting long, long, long into your 80s and 90s, and you're going to allow long, long, long. In other words, age is irrelevant. It doesn't have anything to do with it. And so if somebody says that to you and you want to be playful to them, just say, oh, I think that what you're getting at is that young people are usually more eager about things, but you'll never find anybody more eager than I am, say to them.
That's right.
Yes.
Last one. Thank you very much for that. That made me feel very, very good. My friend, she doesn't drink alcohol. Most of the time when I've been around her, I wanted to really drink up. I don't know why. In the past, I've had a label as a rebellious spirit. Maybe that's why. But I don't understand why. Because usually when I'm around my other friends, we have a great time. There's not that thing. But every time my girlfriend from AA comes down, I have to obliterate myself until I am sick the next day and I'm looking like a jerk to her, and she thinks I need to go to AA. But when I'm around my other friends, I can have a great old time and have a couple drinks, and what is that?
Law of attraction is a very powerful thing. In other words, she has activated within herself, big time, a vibration of pushing against alcohol.
Yeah.
So when she comes close to you, she activates that vibration of pushing against within you too. It stirs up your defensiveness, and then you rebel.
And I just was, and she just rolls her eyes. Candace, you really need help. And I'm just like, oh my God, why did I do this again?
Well, next time it happens in that way,
I am not going to let
Oh, well, yes, you are.